What is up, my creative fellows? Hope y'all are having a great day so far. Welcome again to another episode of Just in Time. In this series, we are trying to make Photoshop as fun as possible, only if you're not a lame guy, and learning as easy as you can get, depending on what's your definition of easy. So let's get easy and enjoyable as fun. So today we're going to be talking about this photo I created 3 years ago. What you think about it? Alright mate, shut up. So after seeing this image, you might ask yourself something like,
are you stupid or something?
well, I might have been back then, but I'm not stupid anymore. So that's why I decided to tell you, you should be smarter than you are. Now I'm gonna give you 10 seconds to detect the mistakes in this image. Ready? Go. Did you find any? I'm sure you found a couple of mistakes, but what is the main one? The shadows, the highlights, colors, lighting, the depth? What? I tell you, the most terrible mistake of this image is the perspective of it. And this would have not happened if I'd used a perspective grid. So to create the perspective grid, we need to use the polygon tool, and it's inside the shape tools. So go to this shape tools group here in the toolbar and select the polygon tool. You don't want no fill, so remove that and you can change the stroke color. I'm gonna go with black, and if you want thicker lines, you can just make this number larger, but I'm gonna go with 2 pixels. I don't recommend very thick lines. Click on this gear icon and put the star ratio to about 1% and change the sides to 100. If you are using Photoshop 2020 or older versions, these settings might be slightly different. So once you click on this gear icon, you need to tick star and also indent sides by 99%. All the other steps are exactly the same as the 2021 version. Now you're ready to draw. All you need to do is to just create a new layer, click and drag. Let me zoom out a little bit. Click and drag and hold shift while you are doing it to maintain the proportions. Remember, this is Photoshop 2021, so you need to hold shift. Now I have the grid in the middle of my canvas. Very cool looking grid, and I'm going to rasterize this shape layer so that it does not bother me. Now this is a 1-point perspective. If you want to have a 2-point perspective, we need to have 2 vanishing points, which means we need to have 2 grids, which in most images we are facing and dealing with a 2-point perspective. So to create the 2-point perspective, we need 2 of these grids. So I'm going to move this one to the side, hold Alt and Shift at the same time, click and drag a new grid. I'm going to put it to the other side, and we have a 2-point perspective going on in the scene right now. So what is this useful for? Let me real quick show you. If I get my brush and on a new layer, if I were to just paint, for example, a building, I could just easily follow these lines and put my building in perspective. So this is great if you are a matte painter or a digital painter who likes to draw a lot. You can use this to really get the shape of your building right. So now I'm drawing the top of a building and my building would look like that. If it was in the scene, I can draw another one right about there. And of course, I'm not a matte painter or a digital painter, so I'm just showing you, this is an illustration of how you can use these grids to your advantage to just draw anything you want. So this is how you would use it. Use it as a drawing guide, but we are not digital painters here. We want to use this in our manipulation, right? So how to use this in the composites? That's also quite easy. What you need to do is to just put anything in perspective using these grids. So let's suppose that I have this object in my scene and I want to put it in perspective, but I know how. So after creating these grids, I know exactly how I need to put this object in perspective. So all I need to do is hit Ctrl T, hold down Ctrl, and adjust the 4 corners of this object or rectangle on the lines of these vanishing points. So that's quite easy. So I'm gonna adjust this point by holding down Control and putting it on the line just like that, and adjust the other points as well. When you are putting something in perspective, make sure that the straight lines or the vertical lines need to be totally straight. They need to be 100% straight, just something like this. So now my plane is in perspective in the scene. You can hit OK, and you can see if I wanted another plane, and I would get duplicate, Control J. Now I'm gonna put it somewhere else, and I'm going to resize it. But then again, I have to struggle with this one as well and try to put it in perspective, which is not very efficient. So the efficient way of making another duplicate of this object would be to just make a duplicate by hitting Control J, and after I hit Control T to resize, I would hold down Alt and click in the middle of my vanishing point, and that moves my pivot point to the center of my vanishing point. If you can't see your pivot point, make sure to check this box. So hold down Alt, move your pivot point to the center of the vanishing point. Again, hold down Alt, and you can now resize your object according to the perspective. You can move it away, bring it forward by holding down Alt and hit OK. Now I can again make another duplicate of this. Control J, Control T, hold Alt, click in the center, and now hold Alt and move it away. That's it. You can make as many as you want, and this is how you can scale stuff in perspective. Now, this was a 2D object, like just a simple plane. Now, let me show you another example. Another example would be this box. I want to put this box in my scene, but I don't know where I should exactly put it. I know it should be somewhere below the horizontal line, but I don't know how it should be placed, and I also want to change its sides so that it matches up with the vanishing points of my scene. So how do I do that? There's a feature in Photoshop exactly for this purpose, and it's called the perspective warp. And how does that work? Well, it's quite easy. You just need to go to Edit and choose the perspective warp. And now it lets you create meshes for each side of your object. So my box has 3 sides, so I need to create 3 meshes and adjust the corners of the mesh to the corners of my box. So I'm gonna create one more mesh for the other side of my box, just like that, and adjust the corners so that it matches up with that one of the box. And I'm gonna create the 3rd mesh, and notice that how my mesh points are snapping together when they are close to each other. So once I have done my mesh, I'm gonna click on warp, and now it lets me adjust each corner and put it in perspective. So you need to drag these corners and move them to another place. So I'm gonna drag these points and put it on the perspective lines, and I'm gonna keep on adjusting these points so that they are in perspective. And you can hold shift and click on a line to make it straight and vertical, just like that. Okay, right now I have quite a good looking box in the scene, and it's in perspective 100%. Well, sometimes you don't need to be precise, but in this case I was being precise, so it took some time. And if I wanted to resize it, I just need to use the same old technique, and I can move it in perspective, and it looks good no matter where I place it, and I can move it in both perspectives. And how do I know if my box is being in perspective or not? Well, you just need to follow the lines of the box, and you can see that those converging lines converge at the vanishing points that I have created. So I know that my box is in perspective now. Another real life example would be this building, because most cases when we are talking about perspectives, we are talking about the buildings and the skyscrapers and stuff like that. So now I have a building and I have brought it into my scene, but the perspective is off. So I will use the same technique to correct the perspective. I will go to the perspective warp, and I will create a warp for the 2 sides of my building. I am only seeing 2 sides of the building, so I only need 2 meshes, and I'm just going to adjust the corners of the mesh to the corners of my building. You just need to make the mesh approximately the same shape as the building. So now I will click warp, and I will adjust the points according to my perspective grid lines, and put this building in perspective real quick. And again, my building is in perspective, and the way I can make sure of it is by looking at the converging lines of my building that will converge into the both vanishing points that I have. In this image, I want to put another stool back there, but I don't know exactly what size it should be. I know it should be approximately about this size back there, but I just don't want to eyeball it. I want to get it correct 100%. So I can use the same old perspective grid for this one as well. So the way we can use that is by creating another perspective grid for this image. So let's quickly do that. I'm going to turn off my stool and I will create a new layer, and I'll get my polygon tool, and I have the same settings that I had, but this time I will go with a red color, and I will create a grid, and right off the bat I will rasterize it so it does not bother me. Now I need to put this on my vanishing point. And how do I find my vanishing point? Well, that's quite easy. You need to follow some lines. So let's get our line tool and let's draw some lines. For example, I'm going to follow the line at the bottom of the wall. Okay, so just follow that line. It will lead to somewhere up here. Now we need one more line that is parallel to this line and will cross it. So I will follow the line at the bottom of this window, just like that. And these two lines will meet at some point right about there. So that is where my vanishing point is located. So let me put a dot over there with blue. There is my vanishing point. Now I can put my grid right on top of the vanishing point, and I don't need my lines anymore, so I can delete them. Let me turn them off real quick, and now you can see how my grid lines are following the lines of the image. Do you see that? They are following the lines that are already in the image, and all the lines will convert to the vanishing point. Now I can get my stool, I can bring it next to my other stool, I can resize it and make it approximately the same size as the stool that is already in the image. So I know if my stool was about here, it would be the same size as the stool that's already in the image. So I will hold Alt, click on my vanishing point, and now I can hold Alt and resize it, and as my stool moves further away, it resizes automatically. So now I know if my stool was somewhere about there, it would be this size. If it was back there, it would be that size. So I'm going to leave it like that, and I'm going to place it right about there. And now my stool is exactly in perspective and has the exact right size. And let me just match the colors and all that and make a composite out of it. I'm going to turn it to white. So go to reds and maybe go to yellows, turn it to a white stool so that it matches up with the other one. And also it needs to be blurred because of the depth of field, so let's add some Gaussian blur into it, and maybe after that we will paint some shadows and make a composite, but it does not matter. The whole thing is that my stool has now the right size, and I could eyeball this, but I wanted it to be 100% precise. Thank you very much for watching till the end. If you've got any questions, you can drop them down in the comments, and if you want part 2 of this perspective tutorials, also let me know in the comments down below. I hope to see you in my next episode. Till then, peace out.